Verbs. A verb is a word or a combination of words that indicate an action or a condition. A verb is the part of a sentence that tells us what the subject performs. For example, I do a morning walk daily. She is a good girl. They go to school. Types of verbs. There are 15 types of verbs. Base verb, regular verb, irregular verb, transitive verb, intransitive verb, finite verbs, non-finite verbs, action verbs, linking verb, auxiliary verbs, modal verbs, phrasal verb, stative verb, dynamic verb, non-continuous verb, base verb. The base verb is also called the root verb or main verb. It is the form of a verb where it has no ending added to it like ed, ing, etc. For example, I plan a picnic party. I go to school daily. You run very fast. Regular verb. These are the most common verbs. They are the one that forms its simple past and past participle tense by adding ed, or, d to its base form. For example, he plays football. You really work hard to get this. Children performed very well at the school function. Irregular verb. These verbs change their form in the past tense. They usually show irregularities in terms of following grammar rules. For example, do you work? I speak to him. I like to drink apple juice. Transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are followed by a direct object. Their activity is moved to another noun next to it. Many transitive verbs become meaningless in the absence of an object. For example, Lena brought the grocery. Here brought will become meaningless without grocery. See these examples. John organized a birthday party. Can I borrow your pen? Intransitive verbs. These verbs are not followed by an object. These verbs frequently leave associated phrases unfinished. For example, I laughed. We sat on the bridge. Emma smiled at me. Here, laughed, sat, and smiled are making sense on their own. Finite verbs. These verbs must include subjects and specify the person, number, and grammatical tense. These verbs express how a subject and object are acting in the sentence. They don't need another verb in the sentence to be grammatically correct. For example, they went to school. I am playing for England. They left for home. Non-finite verbs. Non-finite verbs aren't actually verbs. Instead, these verbs are frequently infinitives, gerunds, or participles. They aren't directly related to the subject. They can occasionally become the subject themselves. For example, John went abroad to play. Reading books is often very enjoyable. Playing football is his only job. I have a broken chair. Action verbs. Most verbs are action verbs. They describe actions that someone can do. For example, we baked a cake. She wore her dress. Action verbs can be transitive or intransitive. Transitive verbs must have a direct object, but intransitive verbs do not act upon anything. For example, I painted the house. She left. Linking verb. A linking verb adds information about the sentence's subject. It connects the subject to details about the subject. For example, the feast seemed delicious. You look happy. I am taller than my sister. Auxiliary verbs. They are also called helping verbs. Auxiliary verbs help the main verb of the sentence by extending its meaning. For example, I have been there before. They do not know their way home. The kids are playing in the yard. Modal verbs. It is a kind of auxiliary verb. It helps the primary verb express possibility, ability, permission, and expectation. The most common modal verbs are can, could, must, may, might, ought to, shall, should, will, and would. For example, it might rain on Saturday. They must go there. She should talk to her. Phrasal verb. A phrasal verb is an idiomatic expression that consists of a verb and another element, most often an adverb or a preposition. For example, it's time to get on the bus. Stand up when speaking in class. He broke down in tears. Stative verbs. These verbs describe the position or state of being. For example, you deserve a good position. I hate summer. I forget you. Dynamic verb. Dynamic verbs are those that describe the ongoing or progressive action of the subject. For example, they are going to Australia. John is swimming in the pool. Non-continuous verb. Non-continuous verbs are those verbs that are typically never employed in their continuous forms. For example, I like to drink coffee. I love to swim.